Hi everybody, I'm Jenny. Welcome to our 4 o'clock live. I am here with Miko from Altitude.
Yay.
Hi.
Hi.
We're missing one. Nicole, if you're out there watching this, we love you. We miss you. She broke down. I hope she doesn't mind me saying this.
No.
Okay, because we advertised that she was going to be on too. So
yes.
She broke down on the freeway.
On her way here.
On her way here, and sent me a picture of her car on the freeway broken down. So
at least she's safe.
Yeah, I was going to say prayers. Everyone
She's
send a
safe.
prayer out to Nicole. She'll be here in a couple weeks. So yeah. Well, anyways, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. It's been a busy week, but here we are. It's Friday.
It's Friday.
Yay.
Did you get your morning workout in?
I did not today. I know.
Is that like the first time in how long?
In almost a month, I think, that I've been going at 5.
So tell me, you've been getting up at
4 a.m.
4 a.m.
Yep. In the gym by 5.
Okay.
Probably getting out around 7 at the latest.
Okay.
So
for you, as a woman in recovery, obviously fitness is important to you. What does that give you? How does that start your day? How does it empower you, being able to get up and do that?
So I think that, one, starting and getting out of the house before the sun is up is very, it's very like peaceful, it's calm. It's definitely a different type of morning routine, something I've never had before. I think making that change, one, was more of like a logistics because I have work, a full-time job, I'm going back to school, and then also being able to like have sponsees and do meetings myself. And so going to the gym early was like my start, right? Because I was like, if I get it done early, then I have the rest of the day to do stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's also very empowering because it's like by, 8 o'clock, like I've already got my workout in, I've had breakfast, I've had time to like do some meditation, and kind of get ready for my day. So it's been very, very, very empowering, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do all of that. That's like really impressive. How do you find the motivation to do all of that? That's a lot on your plate.
It is, but I think that starting to focus on fitness, it kind of started this year. I grew up as a gymnast, so being active was very much a part of my childhood.
Yeah.
Getting clean and then kind of like just figuring out like what's important to me again, and then putting this fitness piece back into it was definitely scary, but I think I just love how I feel because I've done some work internally, and so now I'm like, okay, I love this person who I am today, but now I want to like feel like I do, I guess, like on the outside. So now it's like, instead of trying to make this external thing match or cover what's inside, it's more like what's inside is now showing on the outside.
Mind, body, and soul.
Mind, body, and soul, exactly.
You got it all going on, girl.
Exactly.
So your recovery journey, how long ago did that start, and can you kind of take us down that road?
Sure. So, I started very early with drinking in school when I was in middle school. It was kind of just drinking then. High school was drinking and going to parties and all that stuff. I didn't really start doing drugs until I was in college. So once I got to college, I had a lot of freedom and all this stuff, and I was like going to clubs and drinking, going to raves and like all the party drugs. And I think I pretty much had it under control up until I was around 22 is when I got introduced to meth. And that's when everything really just took off for me. And as far as my addiction, it just kind of grew into that.
Can we stop for a second?
Yes.
So I think this is really important because your story, you went to college, you're getting your education, you had it together, you know what I mean, to a certain extent. And so how did that happen, that you tried meth,
Yeah, so I think that it's all very like weird. So my brother had his issues with drugs when we were in high school. And so I was like, I'll never do meth, right? I'll never do it. And then eventually, like once I got into kind of this party scene where I was going to raves and like doing cocaine and like ketamine and, whatever they have basically, the meth found its way. One, there was like an accidental coke meth situation.
Okay.
That wasn't like the start of everything, but I think that showed me that like it's not as scary as I thought it was. So when it came back around, I was dating the guy, right, one of the hymns, and he was doing it like once a month. So I was like, well, if it's like once a month, like what's the big deal? You know, so I would like do that with him. Right. So I would do that with him, and it was like we would have like a weekend where we would, I don't know, just party, and then, you know, we'd crash out and it would be fine for like a few weeks. But that slowly grew. So that was when I was in college. I was drinking a lot though as well. Like alcohol was definitely my first love. And that just kind of escalated. I mean, it's a progressive disease. So I think that as it slowly just sort of became like alcohol, meth, and then making that switch, I was hanging on in college. I did 4 years, you know, at a Cal State. And it was like, if you look at my transcripts today, it's like the beginning starts out pretty strong, and then it just slowly, you can just see it happen, where it's like, you know, I'm failing. And then I got like let go. They're like, okay, you can't go here anymore.
And did anybody try to call you on it? Did anyone talk to you about it, or?
No, so I'm very good at like keeping everything looking great.
Right.
You know, I was also working part-time at the time, and I was in school full-time. I had a second job doing promoting for raves and stuff. So it was very like, you know, my parents, you know, they probably could have called me on it if they required to look at my grades, but they weren't really looking. So I would just tell them about the good grades, and I just kind of omitted or left out that I wasn't doing well in other classes. Because each time it's like I told myself that lie that like, you can get it together next quarter, right? Next quarter will be better. And I just kept trying, and I remember like honestly believing that the next quarter would be better. But it, you know, and I tried in the beginning, and then it just slowly fades because you can't party and get to a 8 a.m. lab, you know, on time and actually absorb what you're learning. It's just not, and you know, and I'm not doing any studying outside of class. It was like going to school, and I showed up, and then I would leave, and it would just be like all fun.
Yeah. So when you look back at that time, what was it that you were, I mean, obviously the ism, but like what was it that you were masking, numbing, that you were partying and doing all these drugs? And
I don't know if there was something specific. I mean, I was adopted. I don't want to blame my addiction on being adopted, but I think that definitely part of the behaviors, because it was constantly like needing validation from everyone else, and trying to make it seem like everything was fine, instead of saying like, hey, maybe I should take less classes, right? Maybe I should do less partying. Maybe I should focus on just 1 or 2 classes instead of trying to take a full schedule. It's like I wanted to just make everyone happy. You know, my mom's like, you have to be full-time student. You know, I'm working part-time so that I could have money to like go out and do stuff and like be independent. And so I think just like that fear of rejection or fear of failure, and then fear of abandonment, because there was lots of also, you know, the hymns throughout college where it's like constantly trying to find a boyfriend, or you know what I mean? Like it's constant just chaos.
Yeah. Well, it definitely seems like you're able to acknowledge and recognize what it was. So for people that are out there in college right now, women that are going through the same thing, and they're starting to dabble, and they're thinking, oh, I've got this under control. Like, what would you say to them right now in this moment?
Just slow it down. You know, you don't, like, college is a journey, and I think now that I'm back in college, like, there's this appreciation for education, obviously. If I could rewind, I wish I could just give that knowledge to myself that, like, there isn't a hurry to get it all done at the same time. Like, for me, I realized when I was in college that, like, I'm not a good test taker, right? Like I have, like, it doesn't matter. Like there was a class, physics, I hate physics. I studied so hard for that class. And then when it came down to time to take the test, I'm like, all I can do is focus on the time. And it's like, I can't, it's like and then I would just forget everything. And it's like, you know, there's certain departments you can go to and be like, hey, this is what's going on. What can we do, right, to help me be a better test taker?
Ask for help.
Exactly. It comes down to asking for help, but I didn't want to do that, you know, or I didn't know that I could, or I didn't feel, you know, I guess, I don't know if there was like shame because I'd always done so well in school, that I feel like asking for help maybe, I don't know, maybe it would make me look weak.
It's just something. Like addiction, right? And that's a huge 100%. Thing. We got the pride and ego, and I was the same way. I would not ask for help. Oh my goodness, exactly. I'm weak. I can't do this. And that's what we need to be doing. Yeah. Okay, so fast forward. How did you get sober? What was the final point?
So the final point, after a lot of things, I pretty much stayed out of trouble. I didn't really get arrested a lot. There was a couple arrests for like a DUI when I was 19, and then like another one when I was in this drug raid, which I didn't end up getting like in trouble for because I just kind of happened to be at the house. Okay. But that was kind of like my understanding that like I am an addict. I'm not in control of this using. I can't stop because I want to, because up until that drug raid, I was under this impression of myself that like I was doing this because I wanted to. And then I got better at like who I was hanging out with. So it was like less people, not as much traffic, be very careful. And then I found this one guy that I thought was the one, and he had a lot of money, and he was like, you can come move in with me, and like we're gonna move out of the area and like all this stuff. And that relationship lasted for 3.5 years. We were basically doing gift card fraud to support our living, right? And paying rent and bills.
So what happened to all the money?
And all that. So we basically used all the money to spend. Yeah, we were using it for rent. We used it for, which we never paid on time. We went to the casino all the time, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Just chaos.
Just insane.
Yeah.
And so eventually the feds caught up to us.
Wow.
And the feds came one morning. It was August 4th of 2018 that I got arrested.
Okay.
And I, it's like one of those days that you just don't forget.
You remember,
so it was 4 years ago at this time.
Wow.
I was sitting back at my parents' house with
goosebumps.
with an ankle monitor.
Oh my goodness.
And like I was staying in my mom's little office, and I was like on the floor with like pillows and blankets because like my aunt was in my room. I hadn't lived at home for like, I don't know, like a decade basically.
Yeah.
So the dogs were on the couch, and like that was my space. I'm like, I'm on the floor.
Humbling yourself.
Yeah. And so I'm still using. They told me not to be using, but I was like, I'd never stopped. From 22 to 29. Yeah. It was constant. And so at that point I was like, okay, I know I shouldn't be using, but like I have to.
But you have to at this point.
I didn't know how to not pick up. And so everyone went to sleep, so I kept using. They talked about treatment. I was like, okay, I probably should go to, I was in agreement. Of course, I thought it was like the day after I got arrested, I went back down there and they were like, okay, we want you to go to treatment. We want you to do residential. And I was like, I don't know any of this stuff. I'm like, what is all of this?
What is this? Yeah.
And all I knew of that was like intervention, right? From watching the TV show. Right. So I was like, oh my God, if I say yes, like, are they going to take me right now, Yeah. So I was like, can I just get like one more day at home and I'll talk to my family? And like, they were like, okay, that's fine. I didn't talk to my family because I was scared. And so we came back the next day. They're like, did you talk to your family? I was like, no, I didn't. So they brought my mom, and was my dad there? I think he was also there. I don't remember, but they told my family. And so then it was like, okay, cat's out of the bag, and it still took, so I started going to meetings. They were like, okay, let's set up a schedule.
Like AA meetings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, I do NA, but regardless.
It's Narcotics Anonymous for anyone that doesn't know.
12-step meetings. Let's go to the 12-step meetings, right? I didn't know what these are either. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so in a movie, you sit in a church basement, right, with like these old people, and you just sit around in a circle. And like that's all I knew, but I was like, okay, you want me to go? I'll do whatever you want me to. I just don't want to go to prison, right? Because I don't belong in like holding cells, like let alone the federal prison, right? Yeah. So I'm like, Jesus. So I remember thinking like, okay, like this is not your life. Like this is your life, but this isn't really like you. Yeah. So I go to the meetings. I'm still high. I'm getting high like at the meetings, like in the bathrooms. Just all, it's like I can't stop. And then they were like testing me. And so like periodically they would test me and they're like, well, did you use it? I'm like, yes. Like at least I'm honest, Like, well, I'm being honest.
Doesn't that count for something?
Doesn't that count? Right. But so then like right before they were going to revoke my bond, basically, because they're like, you can't, you're not, you're going to the meetings, but you're still using drugs. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't have any, I've never not done it. So like, I was like, I don't have any tools to like not use. Yeah. So I'm like calling and calling. So I find a treatment center that has a bed, and it was like going to be ready for me the following Monday. It was like a Friday. That same Monday I was supposed to go to court. And so the courts, I called my PO. I'm like, okay, I have a bed. So as soon as I'm done with court, I'm going to go straight from court to the treatment center. And then she's like, okay, that's fine. So then I think it was like Saturday or maybe Sunday, she calls me. She's like, okay, so we decided to take you off the calendar, go to treatment, and we want to give you that chance to go to treatment. Because basically up until then, it had been like 45 days. I'd been to 45 meetings. So it was like 45 days since I'd been arrested, and they were supposed to place me. Like they were supposed to be the ones finding me a bed.
And they didn't.
But they, it's like slow because I think federal contracts and who has them and all these things. It's like I didn't have insurance, so I'm also 29. So it was like state facility,
holy smokes.
All that stuff. And like, so I have to call. So I finally get a bed. They give me the chance to go there. I lasted about 39 days and then I got kicked out because there's lots of rules at this facility, and it's a co-ed facility, and I learned that it's not really just drugs that are my problem, it's my behaviors. And
Amen to that.
Yeah, and so that was my first look at like, okay, there's something that I need to fix as well as stopping the drug use.
Right.
So I got kicked out. I didn't relapse. A lot of people do at that point because it's like I have the legal, and it was scary because I remember my PO was like, if you don't finish this program, like I don't have your back anymore.
Yeah.
Because up until then, she was very supportive and like trying to help me out. So I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to take me to prison. This is it. I messed this up. I really did it, And I was like, I could run. I'm like, but I got an ankle monitor. What, where am I going to go? I'm not going to cut it off. So I was like, you know what, let's just go back to the meetings, right? Because at that time I was finally clean. I had about 40 days. I was like, okay, I don't really want to have to start this 40 days over. Let me just get back to the meetings and see where this goes. So they gave me about 30 days until I went back to court. I think it was like a nice little cushion to see what I was going to do. And I really just got invested in the program. So I was going to like 13 meetings a week. There was another day I didn't go to 14. I didn't go to 2 a day because there was one day where they had me go down to the court to do this other class for them. But I was like, as many meetings as they'll let me go to, I'm gonna go. So I got the sponsor. I started working steps. I'm going to meetings. I'm taking commitments at meetings. Like that was my whole beginning because I was like, I do not want to mess this up.
Yeah.
Mainly because of prison. I was like, I didn't look at it like this is forever. Right. I just couldn't. I was like, all I want to do right now is not go to prison. And also not go back to treatment because it's not my favorite place. It's like, thank God for treatment. Thank God for the facility I went to. It allowed me to stop using and to see that I don't have to use. But from that point on, it was just like, what do I need to do to just not, big deterrence. Like, I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to go back to treatment. Yeah. For me, I was like, I don't need to ever do that again. Yeah.
And you know what? For so many different people, it's different things. And it really doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't. But as long as it starts you down that path and you're able to surrender and realize that we're hopeless and helpless and are powerless, you know what I mean, to drugs and alcohol and these behaviors. Right. And once we realize that, then finally we can start on the road. Yeah. So you were off on the road to recovery at that point, and you've been sober ever since.
Yeah. So I went to treatment once. Well, knock on wood. Yeah. September 18th of 2018 was so I went in on the 17th, but I was so high. So I count the 18th as my first day of 2018 was my first day. And then from then on, I've just continued. So it took 3 years for the court stuff to get situated and finally get dismissed.
Amazing. So that was all dismissed.
Yes, which is crazy. It was a lot of pressure. My first year clean, the first whole year, I spent 384 days with an ankle monitor. So that was like a big test of patience. And also, it was my first real lesson of faith. So for me, it was like this whole higher power thing. Like I read it, I believed my sponsor believed. Like I grew up going to church, but I never really felt like spiritually connected there. And so finding a higher power was like an awkward thing for me. And I think now I feel pretty solid about it. But I also know that it's open for interpretation. So it always is changing. So like, it started with my sponsor believes in something, and so I believe my sponsor, and I will just sit with that there is something. What it is, I don't know. But that first 384 days was like, okay, I have 30 days clean. Maybe they'll take the ankle monitor off. Okay, I have 60 days clean. Okay, now I have 90 days. And it's like every time I'd be like, okay, I'm at this mile marker. Like, here you go, take it off. But they didn't do it. And I was like, no matter how many meetings I went to, if I had service commitments, what step I was on, how many days clean I had, like, it didn't matter. It was like, they're not taking it off. And so I realized, I think right around 9 months, that it wasn't up to me, right? And I was like, okay, how about I just stop worrying about how much time I have and when it's here and when they're gonna take it, and focusing on that, because I felt really like anxious about it, and I was trying to make, right, it's like when we self-will things, right, into trying to make this happen.
Self-will run riots.
Yes, and I was, and it's like, it would kind of get me in trouble because I had a schedule of like meetings that I was allowed to go. There was this whole thing. If I wanted to leave my house, I had to like get it approved and put it on the scheduler. It was online. It was between certain times and certain days, and like if you missed those times or days,
that was it.
That's it.
Yeah.
But I was like, but I'm doing so well. Like, I just want to, someone asked me to speak at this other meeting that's not on my schedule, but I just had to learn to say like, no, I can't yet, but I will in the future.
Yeah.
Which was hard because I was so excited. Like, oh, someone's asking me to speak, you know? And so that was okay. But 9 months, I finally was like, you know what? Whenever it comes off, it comes off. And it still took another 3 months of sitting with that idea that like, I stay clean, I go to the meetings, I work my steps, I talk to my sponsor, I'm of service. And these are the things that I just do, and that I'm doing the work, and like the universe will take care of the rest.
Well, yeah. And it did.
And it did.
And being able to trust the process, because 100%. It's so hard to do that. And it was so hard for me too. It still is hard for me to this day, for everyone. And to turn it over to your higher power. It's like the more we try to control, the less control we have. Yet we want to control so much, especially 100%. When we're newly sober. And we want to know like how things are going to pan out and how this is going to happen. And that's not how life works.
Yeah,
and everything is always so changing. And it's just, So, you stayed sober, you got the ankle bracelet off. How far into it?
So I got a year. I think I was still wearing it when I had a year. And then it was like a few days after that they sent me the thing. And I remember I was at work because they let me have a job, which was also a pain in the ass because it's like, here's my work schedule. I worked at a restaurant. It's constantly changing. So I had to like approve it on the schedule and like it taught me like how to really be early or on time to things and how to account for my time, because it's like not only did I have to tell them these are the days I'm working, I also had to include travel time. What time are you leaving your house? What time will you be back at your house? If I knew that I was closing the restaurant and I might be a little bit late, I had to send a text to my PO and be like, closing tonight. I'll send you my little clock out sheet, so she knew that like I really was at work, and and they could see it, but it's like accountability, right?
And it taught you to appreciate your freedom now, I'm sure.
100%.
Just being able to get up and do what you want to do.
Oh my God, yes. So much, because I remember there were so many times, it's like everyone's fellowshipping after meetings or even outside of meetings. They're like, you want to come to coffee? And it's like, I can't, and I always told people like, please don't stop inviting me, because I know I can't now, but I will later. And so I got the ankle monitor off finally. And then my dad died. 3 months after I had a year. So when I had a year, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And that was like, it was very iffy. We were like, okay, we're going to try these treatments. We don't know, blah, blah, blah. But within 3 months, he had passed. And so that was like my first real test of recovery, because that was my first, my reservation, right? If anything happens to my parents or my family, how could I do it? And then it happened. And I was just like, holy shit, like, this wasn't the plan, but I think that I had been so involved in recovery and being in meetings, and I built like a support group, and I had such a bond with my sponsor, who had also happened to go through the same thing, I think like a year prior. It was like a God shot, right? Like, all these people are in your life for this reason. So we go through that, and it's like, that's the next phase, was like the grief thing, and that's still a thing, it's like still something that we learn how to roll with, but it's like he saw me get a year, and then, and he knew that like things were looking up. So that's like what I have to go off of. And then I have my mom, but she's absolutely amazing. So it's like, we just hold on to those things. But the court stuff continued, and so I had to do like some like program, like a diversion program, and I had to do an interview to get in there, and then that was a whole process, and like all these things that were like trust the process, right? You just do the things, you do the things, and I mean, I was like, you know, I did all this math. I'm like, so I'm pretty much guaranteed at least 3 years, right? Once I got into the diversion program, I'm like, okay, it's a year program. I had 2 years, I think, at the time when they finally were like, yes, you can give it your shot. And by that time I was like, okay, well, I know how to take suggestions. So when you get into this diversion program, it's kind of like other people were already there. And so they would share with you like how to get through this diversion program. They're like, be honest and do this and blah, blah, blah. And I think, I was like, okay, I can be honest. You know, I learned how to be honest because I've been working my steps. And so it was very nice, actually. The program was very supportive. All the people there were very positive. They were there to help you. It's like, you know, I was like, oh, I want to go back to school. And they're like, okay, what do you need? We can give you letters. Like what, you know, because to go back to college, it's like, I have to now explain like what happened, right? And I have to try and get certain grades removed from my transcript from like over a decade ago. Yeah. And I have to explain that there was like an addiction and that, you know, it ruined everything and you can see it and like blah, blah, blah. And now I'm in recovery and all this stuff has happened. I'm just trying to better myself. So it was a very like positive experience going through the diversion program. And once I had 3 years, I completed and graduated this program. And so now, since then, it's been almost 4 years ago. Next month will be 4 years. So like at this time last year, I was like pretty much, you know, graduating from the diversion program. And like, that's when it really hit me that like choosing recovery now is just for me. The first 3 years were like motivated by not going to prison, you know, and not going back to treatment. But now it's just like, what do you want to do with your recovery? Because now no one's holding me accountable for it, right? You know, other than my friends, of course, and my sponsor. But it's like the reasons that I used when I first came in are no longer my motivating factors. It's like now it's just because I love the life that I have today. Yeah, you know. And with everything you're saying, it really shows that this works. You know, having 100%. The program, having that community, having people there when you're grieving and you're going through, you know, whatever you're going through in life, that you're able to rely on these people in the 100%. Sense of them, you know, being relatable, offering suggestions, you know, reading in the book and understanding that this is part of the process, and being able to fall back on these people is so important. We need people around us in recovery. Yes. What have you learned the most about yourself since being sober? About myself, I think I was just reintroduced to the person that I always had been, which is a very disciplined and like motivated person. Just like I have a lot of self-motivation, and I don't know where it comes from. I know that like when I was a gymnast, it was, I think it's like that kind of lifestyle really built or strengthened that piece of me, because like nobody was pushing me to do well in gymnastics. It was just like fun. But once I started competing, it was like I'm just doing my best and like I'm winning. Like I have so many medals, it's ridiculous. And you know, and it was like we talked about college, right? Going to college on a scholarship, but I decided to retire basically like right before my senior year, because I wanted a normal last year of high school before college. But it's like that person that has goals and dreams and can actually achieve them, because for so long I had forgotten how to even set a goal, that I even had goals, that I even wanted to do more. It's like the idea that like I could do something bigger or like travel or make plans to do anything was erased, because I was just, all I was worried about was like, do we have enough money? Do we have drugs? And just that boring, it's like you're doing a lot of nothing. Yeah. You know? And you can always come back from things. Like this shows to any woman out there that you can always start over. Yeah. It's never too late. A lot of women don't want to go back to school once they get to a certain age, or they're just, you know, the shame or embarrassment, you know, like having to go back and explain what happened, but you can do it. Yes. We can overcome these things as women. We can be independent and strong 100%. And confident and all those things. What would you say you have taken from this experience as a woman? You were talking about the behaviors with relationships. Yes. How
How do you navigate through that now as like a strong woman in recovery?
So now it's so interesting. I mean, it definitely took some outside help. So in my using, I started dating drug dealers, or like, you know, it's like they're not good people. And it went from like pretty harmless guys to like my last relationship was very abusive. And it was physically, emotionally, just everything you could think of. And so when I came into the rooms, it was like I had no self-worth, you know, and like I wanted validation from whoever would look my way, and I like was very flirtatious and like, you know, all those things, because I just didn't have it for myself, and I needed all these people to tell me that I was pretty and like that they, you know, and just give me attention instead of learning how to just have friendships. So moving through the steps and learning that, like, you know, one, accepting that like I had this low self-worth, right, or a low self-esteem, and then being able to look at it and being like, okay, how can I change this? You know, and it was like by just doing little things, like routines of like making sure, you know, I get up and shower every morning and brush my teeth and like put some makeup on, or go get your hair cut, or get your nails done, or get your lashes, like little things that like I felt made me feel good about myself for me, right? And like I dated in early recovery, and it was like a mess because I didn't know what I was looking for. I think now that I've done those relationships and kind of learned that like I still have the potential to pick men who are emotionally unavailable, and I can't force them, right, into liking me or any of those things, is just sort of looking at like what I really need. So creating that list, right, of like, what is it that I'm looking for in a person or in a relationship, knowing what I have also, like what are my assets, what do I have to give? Because I remember the first time my sponsor was like, why don't you make a list of ideal qualities that you want in a relationship? And I was like, okay. And I sat down to write the list, and I had no idea. I had nothing. And I was like, okay, so what qualities do you have? Do I hold?
What do you bring to the table?
What do I bring, right? What are my qualities? And I also drew a blank. And at that moment, I was like, okay, there's some work to be done here, because of how can I look for a relationship and ask for certain qualities if I don't even know that I have qualities? Yeah. You know, and so that was like kind of the beginning journey, and it was like, okay, how do I do that? So it was just like seeking therapy and like getting through some of the emotional and just trauma that I had been through, just in those terrible, you know, it's like I accepted that I put myself in certain situations, you know, due to wanting drugs, but also due to, you know, it's like Stockholm syndrome almost, where it's like you're, you know, it's like I was told by this person that like I'm lucky to have him, and like the way that he treated me was so terrible, but I'm like, but if I'm lucky to have him, then who else is gonna ever want me, right? You know, and it's like this really crazy dialogue that you have, but it's like learning how to change the dialogue, right, to know that like, no, you deserve better than that, you know. And even when I didn't believe it, telling myself that anyway, right, because I had other people telling me that, and in the same way that I believed my sponsor believed, I believed that she wouldn't lie to me, you know. So it's like you start believing, and then growing that female community. Yes, so important. It's so scary in the beginning. It's really scary, and so many women say this, that it's easier to be friends with guys, and it's like such an easy excuse. We need women in our life. 100%. I think this last year and a half, I've really been pushing myself to like find more women in recovery that like I can connect with, one in my area, but two just in general. And you know, one of my best friends moved to a different state, and then I have my best friend that I work with, and you know, and we have a very strong friendship, but it's still challenging to me, you know, because I still feel like sometimes like, oh, I missed my opportunity to be friends with them, right? Like, oh, I didn't, you know, I should have been closer to them sooner, and like now I'm not, and so now there's no chance. But it's like that's my own you know, barriers, and I'm like, no, just reach out, you know. And I think so many women are the same, you know, and we just need to be open and honest with each other and embrace each other, you know, and 100%. Just speak nicely to ourselves, because I feel like we're our own worst critic, and the way we talk to ourselves, we need to be gentle and soft, and the affirmations and complimenting ourselves. I mean, even this morning, like I woke up late and I like didn't get to the gym, and like my whole last 2 months, I think I've had 3 Sundays where there was nothing on the schedule. and it's like I'm exhausted, you know, but like I woke up this morning, I didn't make it to the gym yet, and like I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna make it today? Do I just skip today? And I'm like, if I don't go today, I'm a failure, right? But it's like, no, you're not.
You're not. It's okay. You're allowed to rest. We're allowed to have an off day, a bad day. It's okay.
You're allowed to eat a cookie or a donut if you want to.
10 if you want to. Go for it.
Right.
Okay, so for you, what are your long-term goals? Where can we see you in 5-10 years from now?
So 5 to 10 years from now, I mean, I guess like I started back in school. I want to finish my bachelor's. I'm going with psychology. I've known since I was a kid that I always wanted to like help people. I didn't know it to what capacity. I think that my long-term educational goal would be to be a therapist.
Amazing.
Being adopted, and I don't know if it's necessarily in treatment, but it could be. I could have my own practice. I could
totally see that. Like really, I could see that.
Yeah, it's like, you know, and I've always had that like personality where people come and they talk to me and they like, oh, you're so calming and like this and that. And so I think that now that I've been introduced to this field, I'm like, okay, this is a possibility. Also being adopted, working with foster youth is also a possibility because there's just such a need, you know, and a lot of foster youth end up as addicts.
Exactly.
So it's like if you can somehow intervene in the middle there, maybe giving more education, may give, you know, resources, anything. And so kind of like being able to be like, look, I was in the foster care system. Although I don't remember it because I was a baby, it still puts me at like a level that like people who are adopted or people who have been in foster care, like we get each other. There's just like this.
You have this bond.
Immediate connection where you're like, I see you. Right.
Just like addicts. We have that
it's the
connection.
same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's a very similar situation because like, you know, and I share that as part of my story because a lot of people will randomly like, oh my God, thank you for sharing that because I was also adopted or I was also in the foster care system, and then we'll talk about it. Because there's just like there's just that thing that you just know. You're like, look, I know. I get it, you know. You don't even have to really be able to explain it. It's just like you get it. So there's so many avenues with it. I also am like a Gemini, so I constantly need something that keeps me on my toes and that I'm constantly like able to sort of change or add variety to. So there's lots of different options. Obviously, I love my job now, which is great in doing what I do because I'm a very social person. So who knows? I mean, that could also just continue. I don't know. You know, it's like,
sky's the limit.
The sky is the limit.
I'm going to be cheering you on all the way. I love you. I'm a huge fan of yours. You're amazing. And you do have that energy. You have this calming energy about you. I'm a nervous person. I get social anxiety and all that fun stuff, really fun stuff. And you are just calming. Like it's nice to be around you. Every time I'm around you, I always feel like at peace and at home and just like you're my friend. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about anything.
I love that.
Okay, so tell us all where you work. Explain everything for us, where we can find you, websites, all that good stuff.
Okay, so I work at Altitude Recovery Community. That is the full name. We just go by Altitude most of the time. Our website is altituderecovery.com. I don't have our admissions phone number set up, but I can give you my number. I do business development and admissions. I'm also the director of marketing, but I think that more so I just do business development and admissions. My number is 626-632-0304. And so you can call anytime. I'm available 24/7.
She really is.
Yep. So
24/7.
Yes, literally 24/7. So Altitude is a detox residential program. We are roughly 30 days. We are currently all out of network, 6-bed facility. We are a co-ed facility. And I think that, you know, we're in Camarillo, so it's Ventura County. It's not super far from LA. It's a little distance from Orange County, but it's a beautiful area. It's very peaceful, very calming area. It's just very secluded. And I think what we really bring to the table is like a team that really cares about each person that comes in. Our therapist is there full time, more than that even. I will say that probably each person gets at least one session per day with her.
That's
just
amazing.
Because she's so available and she's there. We've had a lot of the failure to launch clients come in and they stay and they feel very safe there and they feel, you know, and they want to stay, you know, and I think that it's important to kind of note that because in this industry and in this world of treatment, it's You see it a lot, the people who've been in and out and in and out. And I think that something that we offer is just like another experience that's outside of maybe what they're used to. We're very trauma informed. We do well with LGBTQ clients. We have 2 very private single rooms, one that's semi-private and then one shared. So we have the ability to give people their own space. It's also a huge house, so there's tons of space.
It's beautiful, you guys. I've been there. You feel like you're at a resort. The grounds, the community, the area that it's in, you wouldn't want to leave.
Yeah.
And the staff is amazing.
Staff is great.
And everyone there is just purposeful and driven and passionate and loving and kind. So it's an amazing house. We have a great
team. We really do. Yeah, I think we're building. We just opened November of 2021. So we are out here. We're getting close to our 1 year. Yay. We're very excited to be there and to be doing well. And I mean, also just the area we're in. You know, we're in there. So it's good to note. I think Ventura County really needed some services out there.
And
so
you're there.
Here we are. Yep.
So call her, you guys. If anyone needs help, friends, family, call Miko. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course, thanks for having me.
You are so amazing.
You're
Thank
amazing.
you so much. All right, you guys. Thanks for watching. We will see you next Friday. Bye.
Bye.